All right. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to Things That Matter with Marty McNabb. I have warned Dave that he is a guinea pig for today's podcast slash YouTube channel, but he's assured me that he's happy to do that. So I met Dave Roberts at through the Global Grief Conference that I heard about on Facebook and probably through Let's Reimagine, which I've mentioned to you before. And I've been a part of that organization for a couple of years, collaborating and offering show and tell events. And Dave had heard about my show and tell that I am co-hosting with my friend and friend grief coach or expert, Victoria Noe. And that is 2:00 Mountain tomorrow. The conference starts tomorrow. And I know Dave has an event and hopefully he'll tell us about that as well. But it starts tomorrow. Ours is at 2 p.m. Mountain, 4 p.m. Eastern. And unfortunately, Dave was not able to make it, is not going to be able to make it live. And he mentioned that he has an object, he has something that he carries, that he keeps, that matters to him. And I asked him, hey, I'm starting this new thing, and will you join me and share the story of the thing that matters to you? So without further ado, I'm going to pass it on to you, Dave, and take it away. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Marty. And we mentioned before, you talked to me about being a guinea pig for this venue, and I'm always good to be the first at anything. So it's
I
fine.
appreciate that.
And as I told you, we haven't come down on this earth to have a perfect experience. So let's make this as organic as possible and see where it goes. So
Thank you.
I discovered the value of linking objects, objects that link us to the memories and of our transitioned loved ones, deceased loved ones who have passed away, however we choose to conceptualize death. Several years after my 18-year-old daughter, Janine, transitioned on March 1st, 2003 of alveolar rhabdomyosarcoma, a rare and aggressive connective muscle tissue cancer. And I found this object, or this object found me, in 6 months after she transitioned in my garage, which has many nooks and crannies. And whether I was nudged through divine intervention or I happened to just say, well, let me look at, there was a compartment that we used to hook up a landline phone to. I opened up the compartment, and lo and behold, I found the object that I'm about to show you. And I began to immediately recall how this object came into play, how it connected me with my daughter. And as I began to progress in my grief journey, I began to realize that we can relive memories literally in real time just by recalling the stories that are associated with the object. And what this allowed me to do is it was a vehicle for me to further integrate my grief and in a lot of ways transform the relationship with my daughter, where this object and other perspectives that I've been able to embrace in the 19 plus years since she passed has enabled me to learn that we can maintain bonds with our loved one, we can transform the relationship, and we can continue to connect to their memory, connect to their essence, integrate those memories, integrate their essence into to us literally, and rewrite our life narrative so that we can learn to carry our grief while engaging in a purposeful and meaningful life in honor of and with our loved ones. So you tell me when you're ready for the object. I have it right in front of me.
Wonderful. Well, and thank you so much for sharing your experience of how one of my sayings has been recently that, the bumper sticker, the best things in life aren't things.
Mm-hmm.
And I totally agree with that sentiment. However, I also, after hosting over 160 of these events, what I found is that objects like you just so beautifully spoke about somehow hold on to the memories, the stories,
Mhm,
and are can be powerful, transformational,
mhm.
objects in our life. So yes, so without further ado, Dave, please show us this object that you found. Did you say in the garage?
It was in the garage. And I found this 6 months after Janina transitioned. So here it is. I'm going to hold it up. Can you see it okay? What does that look like to you?
It looks like a propeller,
Hmm.
a
Actually, if
fan.
you look at the back, it's a, it's a clip-on deodorizing fan that you can put in your car. So once you turn on the heating vent, it it gives you a very beautiful, uh, beautiful odor. It gets rid of any car odor, odoriferous smells in your car. Things like remnants from fast food,
Yep.
sweaty gym suits or whatever. So it helps to really counteract that.
Yes.
So this was probably when Janine was about 14. So that would have been about 4 years prior to her transitioning. Whoops, I dropped it. There we go. She she came and we were in the kitchen. And it was a summer day, and she looked at me and she goes, Dad, she goes, I'm going to go out. We're going to buy you a car deodorizer. And I said, why do you want to do that? And at the time, I had an old 1993 Jeep Cherokee, and Janine, who was about as subtle as a trumpet solo. I mean, she would say what was ever on her mind, said, Dad, your Jeep stinks. So I'm going to take you out. We're going to buy you a car deodorizer. And I think the message was, if I have to ride in your Jeep, at least it's going to smell pretty. Okay. So we went to a place called Pep Boys, which is probably just up the road from where I live. And it was a summer day, and I remember that day very vividly. I walked into Pep Boys. She was right on my right-hand side. I was to the left of her. A young man, probably 16, 17, waited on us. He had very short crop brown hair. I remember, I think Janine was wearing, just a regular summer outfit. And I think I had shorts and a shirt on. So she picked out this deodorizer for me. I think Marty probably cost at that time couple of bucks, if that. Um, and so I bought it. I ended up paying for it. She didn't. She basically said, "I want to pay for it. You drive me, I'll pay for it." I ended up paying for it. And so this, as I mentioned, manifested about 6 months after she had passed and transitioned. And I think it was meant to come to me at that time that it came to me, because I was, she was always prominent in my thoughts, and she still is. She's still very prominent in my thoughts. And typically when we get these kind of signs or nudges from beyond, it's always a product of what's going on with us in the present. I was thinking about her, this manifested, so I held on to it. And at the time, I didn't know why I held onto it, other than it was something that I knew reminded me of my daughter. It was another thing to just connect me to her memory. And then I started recalling the story with us. And I also showed this. I tell this story whenever I do workshop, that's based on the integration of grief, linking objects, and how they can help us connect to memory and help us work through grief by honoring the memories of our loved ones. So I always tell the story of the $2 deodorizing fan. And the thing about why this is so powerful to me, and I think it could be powerful to anybody who chooses to embrace this as a way to connect to their loved ones, is that whenever I tell that story, it's like it's happening in real time. I can actually find myself going back to that exact place, Pep Boys, visualizing how everything looked, what my daughter wore, what I wore, what the day was like, and I can recall it almost in real time. So it's like I'm being transported to another dimension in time or in the universe, where I'm experiencing a past life while I'm living my previous one, or a past experience while I'm living my present experience. So that's what, to me, makes it so powerful. And one of the things I used to do as a support group facilitator for I used to facilitate a support group for parents who had experienced the death of a child. We would have photograph night, where they would bring in a favorite photo of their loved one, and they would tell stories around that and talk about the connection to that photograph. We also encouraged them to bring in objects as well too that were not photographs. The only rule we had, as long as you could get it through the door, it was all good. Okay, if you couldn't get it through the door, we couldn't. You'd have to take a picture of it and then bring it in and talk about it. But I adopted this idea from another friend of mine who used to facilitate, we used to co-facilitate a hospice group together. And they used to do this as one of the activities. And there was a woman whose husband had passed that brought in a pasta machine. And they asked her, well, why did you bring in a pasta machine? Well, I brought in the pasta machine because my husband and I would talk about life over making homemade pasta. We would talk about, about the kids' futures. We would talk about our children's future, our future. We shared our hopes, we shared our dreams, we shared our sadness while we made pasta. So anytime I see a pasta machine, I make pasta, I think of my husband. So any object, it could be a $2 fan, it could be an expensive pasta machine, it could be anything. It could be, an old makeup tube that reminds you of, it could be anything. As long as that has significance for you and can help you recall positive memories of your loved ones, it's all good. And I'm a firm believer in using linking objects, which, by the way, is something that was developed by Dennis Class in conjunction also with this continued bonds theory. And linking objects and continued bonds, to me, kind of go hand in hand.
Wow. Well, I would love to continue the conversation and learn more from you, because as I'd mentioned, I've hosted 160 of these events. The first 110 were probably all in person, but over the last couple of years, like all of us have, they've gone virtual. But I also, your thing about the pasta machine made me think about, like, the lives well lived. My friend Sky Bergman did this documentary called Lives Well Lived, and there's, she has a spoon that she inherited from her grandmother. And so anyway, it's like, but I remember the changing, like at one point there was, a sense that reminiscing was a negative thing and you shouldn't encourage it. And I'm just so glad that the field, psychology has opened to the idea that it's a transitional, and that transition can be, decades long or whatever, but it's not in and of itself. Reminiscing is not a negative, it's not a bad thing. It's not so that's wonderful. But I'm curious, I know that you are offering several workshops. I knew you were offering one tomorrow, but I guess you're offering several this weekend, and I'm wondering if you can you can list them or tell my my audience about them so that they can find you on the Global Grief Conference happening this coming weekend.
Well, I am doing a workshop tomorrow at 6 a.m. Mountain Time and 8 a.m. Eastern Time. It's basically, it's kind of this conversation we're having is kind of a nice segue to what I'll be doing. It's called Pieces of Me, a technique to integrate our grief and transform the relationships with our loved ones. And this is so this is something that I had come up with, a hands-on activity where individuals could ask specific questions about identifying characteristics of their loved ones that they could integrate into their own life narrative, and in a way, create a new relationship or a transform relationship with their transitioned loved ones. And in the workshop too, I'll be talking about linking objects and the process of integration. We'll talk about some precursors to actually what integration of grief looks like, how we get there, and then Pieces of Me will be the specific tool that I will introduce for individuals to begin to engage in that process or explore that process of integration. So that's going to be
wonderful.
8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time and 6 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time or Mountain Standard Time. It's the 2 hour time difference. So if anybody's up in the Mountain Time Zone at 6 a.m. in the morning, you're more than welcome to join. And
I'm
then
not sure I will be, but
that's
because I am coming to you from Silver City, New Mexico.
Yep.
So we're on Mountain Time, and that's a wee bit too early. But do you
Well,
have other workshops that
well,
Mountain Time people can join?
well, actually, it's not going to be a workshop. It's going to be a talk.
Talk, yeah.
It'll be Saturday, it'll be April 30th at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and 2 p.m. Mountain Time. The title of that talk is called Wallowing Through the Muck, literally through the muck, discovering joy and meaning after loss. And now I'm also an adjunct professor of psychology and psychology child life at Utica University by trade. So anything I do, workshop or talk, are going to have some didactic teaching points at the end. So,
Wonderful.
and
And
so those,
that's a time spot that I think I can make. 2
yeah,
p.m.
2 p.m. Mountain. Yeah, I'm not.
Wonderful.
I kind of figure I'm an early bird, but I kind of figure for those who are on, Mountain Time or they're 2 hours behind, I kind of figure 6 o'clock in the morning might be a stretch. For a lot of individuals. And again, especially for presenters like yourself who are on Mountain Time and Victoria who are on, who are on, is on the same time zone. You guys have been doing preparation for your own workshops. And, you want to also give yourself an opportunity to give yourself some time to rest and and do some last minute planning. And I think that's the same. I want to be able to attend. If I could attend everybody's workshops, but
I
obviously
know.
it's not going to be possible.
No, we've got to
To
take care of
attend it.
ourselves.
Yep, yep. But those are the two that I'm doing, and I'm really, really, really looking forward to it. And um, you know, and who knows if the pieces of me is a hit, maybe, if it's something that other individuals, I can always do that at some other venue as well too.
Absolutely. Oh, I'm hopeful that there will be replays,
Me too.
or we can go back. I think the live, there's ways to do that. So
Mhm,
get a chance, because I would love that. It's been a pleasure getting to know you and learning more about your work and the work of your academic institution as well, and to hear how you've transformed your grief through sharing stories about your daughter.
mhm,
And that's the beauty of that little air freshener thing. I'd never seen
mhm,
one before. I've seen them in different ways, but not like literally a fan. And it's so fascinating because you know the things, like, people are always like, oh, it's got to be this heirloom, it's got to be this, like, when I ask people to bring an object and tell its story, they're always thinking, oh, it has to be this really amazing thing. And I'm like, no, 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 no. My tagline is everything has a story, and some
mhm,
of the least the $2 things, anything
mhm,
you can attach a
mhm,
story to. So thanks for demonstrating that right away. It's no
mhm.
pressure. Everything has a story.
Everything is, yeah. I mean, I have on my desk, I have an empty Mary Kay makeup tube. My mother, who raised me after my father left, I used to call her the Mary Kay lady. She was always in quest of the pink Cadillac. But but in reality, that tube reminds me of her commitment to service as well too. It wasn't so much about accumulating abundance in terms of wealth. It was abundance in terms of the number of relationships she developed as a result of selling Mary Kay and selling a product that she believed in that would help individuals transform their outward appearance and obviously help them feel in many ways better about themselves. And that was something that
Right.
was a mission of hers. So whenever I see that tube, it reminds me of her commitment to service, which in my later years, I've tried in my last 19 years, I've tried to model. And that's based on her influence. So every time I look at that Mary Kay tube, it reminds me of what that signified for her and what she modeled for me.
Wow. Well, like I said, Dave, this is not going to be our final conversation for sure. We've got so much in common, and I look forward to continuing this conversation. And I thank you so much for being a guinea pig on this first edition of Things That Matter with Marty McNabb. And I this has been a wonderful way to kick off this experience. And I thank you so much. And I look forward to joining you for your Saturday event.
I look forward to having you be a part of my Saturday event. It was a pleasure talking with you. I'm looking forward to future conversations, Marty. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you, and take good care. All the best. Have a wonderful weekend of the Global Grief Conference. I'm checking as many events as I can without like overdoing,
Mhm.
and take good care. See you next
You
time.
you got it, Marty. Take care.
Thank you.
All right. You're welcome.